to this event. Today is the first day of both Heritage Month and Black History Month. And so we're going to kick off both of those months by doing a highlight and live interview of Sister Barbara Croom. Can we give her a round of applause? Thank you. To start off, could you please give an introduction of yourself?
Okay. All right. My name is Sister Barbara Croom, and I am a adorer of the blood of Christ. I'm 80 years old. I've been in community this year 60 years. I started out as an elementary grade teacher, first and second grade, mostly first grade. Then my last 3 or 4 years, I did departmental of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then I went into pastoral work. No, I went into child care. It was for deprived, dependent, neglected children for several years. And I generally had the youngsters from anywhere from, say, 13 through 18 until they were emancipated. In other words, going on their own then. Then I went into pastoral work, and I've remained in pastoral work until I retired last year, 2 years ago. I have to always think this COVID has knocked everything off. So the beginning of COVID, which was like 2 years ago, I worked in parishes as a pastoral assistant. I'm originally from North Carolina. I'm a coastal person. I very much mind not seeing the ocean or being near the ocean wherever. So therefore, as I was telling Elizabeth, I have a room on the lakeside here, and they can't do anything to me. I will not give up that view of the water. It's like a little bit of home. So, so that's basically who I am.
Thank you. Our first question of the interview is going to be, how did you get involved in the church originally?
And that's what helped me to realize that I needed to get some more information from Elizabeth. But when she finally said to me that she wasn't Catholic, it hit right on. I am what they consider a cradle Catholic. Of course, I wasn't an infant. I was about 4 years old when my family came into the church. My mother was an AME Zion Episcopal Methodist, and she was not very satisfied being a Methodist. So once we moved, I was born in New Bern, North Carolina, which is right on the coast, practically on the coast, near Morehead City and around in there. But when my growing up years, we had moved from New Bern to Kinston, which is a little bit more inland from the coast. And once we got there, actually the home that we went to was directly about where Sister Treese is, the church, just the street across. It's a Catholic church. And my father's aunt, which would be my great aunt, they were Catholic. So at any rate, my mother liked it. So we all, as a family, came in as Catholics at that time. I was baptized at that time. The whole family was made a profession of faith or were baptized. So that's actually how I am Catholic.
Wonderful. Our next question is going to be, are there any significant people in your life who encouraged you to pursue a religious life?
Well, the most obvious person to me would be Sister Gertrude Schrank. She was, you may not realize it, but our congregation that I belonged to, the Adorers, we had 3 provinces in the United States. I was from the Columbia area, and the sister that I'm referring to, Columbia, Pennsylvania, the sister I'm referring to is from that area. There was Sister Gertrude here, there's lots of Sister Gertrudes, but that's why I gave her last name. But she was the sister who came to my parish in North Carolina, Our Lady of the Atonement, when I was in 3rd grade. And she's a strong German, with a strong German accent. And she tells me this on my final profession days into religious life, when I made vows for life, which was quite a long time. But she tells me on this day that, you know, Barbara, she would say to me, when I came to Kingston, I walked into the classroom and I said, dear Lord, give me one of them. And she looked at me and she said, give me that one. And she prayed for me all those years, but she didn't only just pray for me. It was her. I was her mission, in a sense. I was a little girl that lived across the street, cat a corner from the convent, and I was there morning, noon, and night sometimes, doing different things. If she heard me on the playground or out in the project area, she'd call me over. If she had to go up into town, she would take me. If the sisters were out of town or whatever, I spent the night. I mean, she really did her part as far as nourishing, in her mind, this vocation of which I gave her plenty of problems. I didn't like the way they eat. I didn't like the food. I liked pickles. I was a real pickle addict. And she didn't like that it thinned my blood, so she said, and kept me sick and so forth. Oh, if I got a cold, she nursed me with some of those old German, you will not believe the stuff. It's amazing that I'm alive. But anyway, she really did her part as far as nourishing. And the sisters, I never heard of a feast day before. They opened me up to feast days. They would call me over. They had a little cake. And it was just all little things that they did that was very nourishing. I recall that, I would say about 3rd grade, actually, if I would, about 3rd grade, that I began to feel that, yes, I wanted to be like them. And I wanted to be like them. What attracted me was the simplicity of life that they lived. The things that, the little ordinary things that made them happy, that was rejoiceful for them. The least little thing they felt very excited about. And those are the kind of things that, that drew me. That's what I liked. And so I always kind of felt, yeah, I'd like to be like that. But once I had made up my mind that that's what I wanted to be and wanted to do, I went on and lived my life like any other youngster. I frustrated everybody because I joined in everything. I was in everything. I did everything. We danced. And in the South, in those days, we had to create our own entertainment and enjoyment and so forth. And so I was one of the leaders in that, and so this is just one of those things that I just kept on doing whatever any young person would do in growing up, and mix and matching with my friends and so forth. I had lots of friends and so forth. Yes,
Was the school only African American?
in the South, in the towns, you had two schools. You had for blacks and you had for whites. And in Kinston, it so happened that the Adoras taught both in both places. So most of my friends and myself, especially myself, we did not feel hampered or hindered by what most people would consider exclusion. We always realized that we were as important as the next person. We were never brought up to feel that we were anything less than anyone else. And so we went about our life, and we were the ones who were in control. We were the ones who control, in other words, controlled our lives. No one else controlled our lives. And we learned how to relate and how to live in the situation that we were born in.
Well, thank you so much for that. It sounds like Sister Gertrude really pushed you into the religious life that you're in now.
Well, Gertrude, yes, and then there were two other sisters that were with her. This was mostly, and I think those three sisters were there through my maybe 6th grade. I think I had, actually the school that I went to, I'm considered one of the first graduates, but the school didn't start until I was in 2nd grade, that the school was finally built. So, and then we had the Atonement Friars, priests, and I remember the priest saying to me, the pastor saying to me, how come I didn't join the Atonement Sisters? And, you know, the gall of children, I just looked at him and I said, well, because they don't accept black people. And I said, and I really like our sisters. I like the simplicity of life that I have experienced from them. So that was that.
That's great. Our next question, what are some of your favorite memories as an ASC sister?
Well, I think that question sort of stumps me because I don't really think I have I have a favorite more than I have a not so favorite. I really can't say what I didn't like. My favorite was, of course, hearing that this sister had been praying for me all this time, and things that she was doing, they were all a part of the whole picture. I mean, I say abuse. We took abuse from our parents, myself and a girlfriend of mine, who lived one house in between. And because we were at the convent so much, our parents used to say, we don't have any daughters. You know, of course, if we would talk German, but they said other things. I'm not going to do it like they would do it, but if we talked German or if we did this, then maybe we see more of them or whatever, you know. But, and we were always being upset with them for talking about the sisters in that way, you know, because we thought, no, that's no, we want to be there, we want to do this. But, so that's more, and how all of the sisters, like I said, most of the time there were only 3 of them. The 3 sisters, they all were very accommodating and very outgoing to us.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that.
Least favorite, I mean, there's mounds of information out there as far as if you want to say this, that, and so forth. But in general, I would say I don't have a least favorite.
That's good. That's how it should be. That's great. Our next one, who are some of the role models that you have in the church?
That's a really big, wide question also. But again, of course, Sister Gertrude, and I have, there's a couple of other sisters. There was one who was a biology teacher who was very, very inspirational, and a music teacher who was very inspirational. And then as I've gotten older, I had a wonderful Maryknoll spiritual director who was some of the people that I would think are very instrumental in my development.
Wonderful. How has your identity as an African American woman impacted you in your role as a sister?
It's all one. That's the best I can say to you. It's all one. It enhanced who I was as a person, as a black person, as a woman, as a Catholic woman, and so forth. It's not so much that being black influenced my religious life any more than my religious life influenced my blackness. Like I said, it enhanced it, it developed it, it matured it along the way. There wasn't a separation. I never lived with the separation of being black or being Catholic. It was me, Barbara, you know, and how I developed and matured through what was happening, what was going on, what I learned, people I met, and so forth and so on. You see, because I never had the sense that I was any different than anyone else as a human being, as a person, other than I happen to be black, you happen to be white, you happen to be Asian, you happen to be whatever. And I never made a lot of distinction and a lot of difference in that, in growing up.
It's all interconnected. Wonderful.
We learn from each other. I do take the best or take what works for me from whomever I meet. And if it works for me, I incorporate it in my life. If it doesn't, then I let it go and that type of thing. It's not so much that I saw anyone. I just saw that I absorbed whatever was workable in my life for me.
Wonderful. What are some of the unique ways that these two worlds intersect for you? You may have already answered this in the last question, but if there's anything else to add.
Yeah, you're right. When I think of intersecting, like something coming into it, and in my mind, it has mostly, it has all been absorbed into who I am. Mm-hmm. I can't say one thing or another changed anything. It as I said, it matured or enhanced what already was there. Mm-hmm. It grew it more than anything else.
Yeah, all of the separate identities all combine into one that's very enhanced by each other. Mm-hmm. And then this is our final question from the slides. What advice would you give to a young African American pursuing a religious life?
Well, I think the first thing is to be honest and real with yourself. You know, really know, or by degrees, know yourself. Understand yourself, like yourself. You know, and you know, be open to wanting to live your life to the best of your ability. If you wish to choose to live it as a religious sister, versus a married person, or just a single life, once you begin to decide on that, then pursue it, at least to give it an opportunity to understand what you're saying you want to be. Then, of course, get informed, know what that particular lifestyle is all about, and understand what the requirements. I don't like that word in particular, but it's the only one that comes to me right now. And decide that this is what you want to do. Once you decide, then do it. Then be who you want to be. At least give it a fair shake. Pray, of course, very much. And in your praying, you're discerning. And you need certain information and all to do all of that. And but be very clear about what you want to do. And then trust your decision. You know, don't flam around. If you decide that you want to do this, then go about doing all the things that you need to do to really understand and know what you're about and have made a decision that you want to live that way. I mean, there are consequences and rewards in everything. And it's the same thing in whatever lifestyle you choose. But you either go at it, go straight forward into what you want to do, live it to the best of your ability. And if you find some way that it doesn't serve God or serve you in any way, then look elsewhere. But if it's just a few mountains, creek, and cracks in the road as you go along, so that's what builds you up when you work through those things, and you have to do that in any life situation that you find yourself in. So you really need to decide that this is what you would like to do, why you would like to do it, who you would like to do it for, and go at it.
Thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Not right off, unless someone should happen to ask a question that would trigger something. I don't really have anything myself.
Well, I'm sure that advice will really resonate with some people who are listening to this. So thank you for that. Can we give Sister Barbara a round of applause? At this time, if you're comfortable, we'll open up to the audience for any questions that y'all have for Sister Barbara.
Or in your teaching days, did you never experience prejudice?
Oh, yes. All the time. Wake up in the morning, you experience prejudice, yes. And then at home, we just knew how to relate and how to deal with these people and with people who thought differently than us. And, you know, like, I had, she's like a second mother, a third mother. I had so many mothers. But the women in my hometown, they were always, you're always on guard. You're always on guard. I know women, they have gone to stores to buy something or whatever, and they would be called by the men by their first name, for instance, Lois, da-da-da, da-da-da. And we as black women would mostly say to them, well, how is Jenny? You don't call their wives by their first names. They don't like it. So they get the message real fast. And then it gets to be Mrs. White. So you learn how to relate to prejudice. And sometimes there's a mutual understanding, and sometimes you have to kind of help the understanding. Very normal, very gentle. You didn't have to yell, holler, and scream. You didn't have to be angry. You just simply put people in their places. But you had to always be on guard to do that, if you didn't want to be walked all over. And everything, one thing about the South, it has always been very open. People knew where each other stood. Not so northward. It's very subtle. So you even get sharpened a little bit more in how to really relate and understand if someone is downing you or respecting you.
Do we have any other questions for Sister Barbara?
One of the stories that I think is so funny and also sad in a way is the stories from Columbia about how when your families would come. Do you mind sharing that story? Or when their families would come?
Okay, I'm thinking, I think I know what you're referring to. When some families have visited at homes, we've had, that's, before I get there, because this fits in together. When I said be yourself, be honest with yourself, remember you had a certain set of experiences that you came from, that you grew up with. So does all the other sisters. So you don't go in thinking, oh, the sisters are saints. They are they're in the process of, just like we're in the process of everything, of growing into whatever situation we're in. They're not saints already. You know, so they're a product of their environment. So the same thing that I have out here, I can have in here. When a family visited, in fact, it was two young men who was visiting their aunt, and the sisters were so frightened because they don't know. If you don't know and you don't understand and you heard strange things about people and you haven't experienced it themselves, then you're working out in a vacuum. And so what happened is that these sisters were terribly frightened when these two young men came to the door. Incidentally, they happened to live right next door almost to what we called the projects, which were basically all black families. And the sisters were peeping out the door instead of letting the people in, you know, when they ring the doorbell. And so when they did, they kind of peeped through, and it was like, you know, no, sister's not here. No, they didn't open the door at all. That's what it was. But they could see that they were looking at them. So the guides went back to their car, And while they were sitting in their car thinking what they were going to do to get a hold of their aunt, some of the youngsters of the parish, it happened to be a Croatian parish, they almost had a little war there. They almost had a little war there, like, why are you bothering our sisters? And they were saying, well, we come to visit, and you don't have any aunt. You don't, in other words, it could not be any black sisters that would have, no, there could not be any black sisters. So anyway, they were able to get away, to go on home. And then, of course, they called Sister from home and said that they were there and this is what happened. And, well, there was some ramifications there, but it was a learning situation. When I was at our center house there, we called it our mother house, we used to have retreats every weekend, women's retreats during the summer. And then at the end of the weekend, we would all come together, a lot of the sisters and the women and so forth, and have refreshments and so forth. Well, myself and Sister Helene, another sister, a black sister, only two of us in the United States, really. We were all there talking and so forth. And this one sister, in her exuberance, said, "Oh, I want to introduce you to Sister Barbara, our black sister." Yay, hello. And so I turned around and I said, "And this is Sister Joan, our white sister." She was really affronted about it. Later, she said to me, "Why did you say that?" And I said, "Well, why did you say what you said?" And that's all that we said about it.
That's what I was really asking you about, is that example.
Yeah.
It's shared so often, it's such a reminder.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that had been so often. But anyway, so when I first came here, one of I don't know how we got into the conversation, but one of the sisters said, she's older and she's dead, praise God, but she said, we were on the elevator together, and she said, "Oh," she says, I wish we had some black sisters." And I just kind of like looked at her and I said, "Well, you do, sister." And she said, "No, we don't." I said, "You do, sister." And she said, "Oh, I mean one of our own." I said, "What do you mean one of your own?" She said, "One that was right here in Wichita." I said, "Don't make sense, sister, please." And so she said, "Well, anyhow, that's what I mean." I said, "Okay." But I mean, so that's what I mean. People have their own background. And we all have to take our time to learn how to work around that. Some people actually really are highly frightened, don't know where to go, afraid to say something. They don't know if they should or not because they've never had the experience. They've never been around. When I was working in the pride dependent neglected children, sometimes I would have to go to court with one or the other of them. And we would go up into the coal regions of, a lot of them were from the coal regions of Pennsylvania, and very highly prejudiced up there. And I mean, you have people following you all around, looking at you, staring at you all the time. I mean, that's part of my life, I'm used to that. But this little girl had never, ever seen a black person in her life. And she was at least 16 or so at that time, I think. And scared to death. Scared to death. Had no idea how to relate to someone different than herself. So, like I say, don't be surprised or scandalized if you enter religious life, or same thing like with marriage and you enter into a family and someone relates very differently to you. It has a lot to do with not knowing you in the sense of having related to people like you.
Thank you, Sister. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Not really. The main thing I would just say is to be comfortable with yourself, understand yourself, and try to understand others. That some of the same feelings you may have, others may have them too. And to be gentle with yourself and gentle with each other.
Thank you. Can we give Sister Barbara one more round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Y'all are welcome to stay here and enjoy the refreshments in the back. There's fruit, veggies.